So welcome. I am Caroline de Posada, as most of you already know. Thank you for being here. I am so excited today because, as you know, every month we interview an amazing expert in different topics from different backgrounds, with different levels of expertise in different areas. And I'm really, really excited about the expert that I'm going to bring to you today. Look at Deanna. She's like so excited. Actually, Deanna was partially my inspiration for bringing on our guest for today. And I will talk about that a little bit. For those of you that are in our membership community, our Caro's Core community, we have themes every month, and we base our whole month on that theme. And this month, the theme is Nourish. And the idea is, it's October. This is a transition month. We are transitioning into the holiday season. We are going to start the Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the craziness that comes with holidays. And that could be very intense. So my reasoning is that we should use October to nourish our bodies, our minds, and our souls in preparation for the end of the year, because it can get a little bit crazy. And when I was thinking about which expert I would bring onto the call this month to talk about, to kind of be aligned with the theme of Nourish, I thought about Michelle. And it actually came up from a conversation that I had already had her in my mind. I had already had her in my mind because you guys know Frances Rios. She was an expert on our call too. And Frances had Michelle on her podcast. And I listened to Frances's podcast, and it was in Spanish. If you guys haven't heard it, I'll give you the details. But I listened to her podcast where she was interviewing Michelle, and Michelle talked about seasons. And we're going to start the call with that. But she talked about living your life according to the season that you're in. And she was the one that exposed me to that idea. And she inspired me to really approach seasons in a very intentional way. And I'm all about wellness, mindset, relationships, and living life with intention. So that's what first planted the seed about having Michelle. But what really did it was I ran into Diana. We were at Luli B's Café con Luli B event that we connected at. And she told me that she was in this group, in this inner circle group. And she's just ranting about this group, and she's doing, this is amazing. She's just, she's discovered all these amazing things, and her business is great, and her marriage, and she's just ranting about this inner circle. And I said, well, who's leading this inner circle? And she says, Michelle Villalobos. To which I responded, I know Michelle Villalobos. My dad had been a mentor of Michelle many years ago. And she said to me, no. I knew that Michelle Villalobos too. That's not the Michelle that we're talking about. She's a different Michelle. This is a different Michelle. And I'm like, what do you mean? She says, she's just a different person. She has transformed her life. And when she said that to me, I said, I gotta dive deeper in this. I gotta figure this out. So Michelle and I had a call, and she talked to me very honestly and vulnerably how she hit complete rock bottom in her life a few years ago, actually around the time that I met her. It was around the time that I met her. And she hit rock bottom. And as a result, everything came crashing down. Her relationship, her financial status, her health, all these complications happened at once. And she had to nourish herself back to life. And when she told me that, I knew she was the expert for today. So Michelle, thank you. Welcome to my little corner in the sky.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
So I don't even know where to start because I have so many questions to ask you. So I want to ask you about hitting rock bottom first, because I think that before we can get into the new you, we need to figure out what happened. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So the long story short was that, like many women, like many humans, I spent the first few decades of my life living the life that I thought I was supposed to live, being the person that I thought I was supposed to be, trying to please and impress people, including, especially it started with pleasing and impressing my parents at a young age. And sort of that strategy worked really well. I got straight A's in school. I went to an Ivy League college, it got me to a good job, making money. And so I thought that was the strategy, right? You just keep going, keep plowing away. And what it ended up happening was, 35, 40 years in, I realized I wasn't living a life that was in alignment with who I really was. I didn't realize it I didn't say, oh, wow, I'm not living in alignment, so let me change my life. My life got so bad, like little by little, that it sort of like, I got this huge wake up call, I think, the universe, God, source, divine, whatever, tried to wake me up many, many times. And I just kept saying, nope, I'm good. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to just keep head down, keep plowing through. And what I mean by that was that I focused on making money. I focused on, what's the word? Like focused on my image in the world, focused on getting a better job, making more money, buying nice things. And what was happening was all the time there was a gaping hole inside of me that I know this now, I didn't know it then, that I was trying to fill with alcohol, parties, food, shopping, and anything else that I could possibly use to numb from the truth, which was that I was not living my life and I wasn't being my best self. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to understand that a little bit. So
Yeah.
if you were saying that you were focused on making money, you were focused on your image. What about that was not aligned with who you are? Because you make money now, you have an amazing image now. So what's different?
The difference is that's not my focus anymore. It's not the source of my knowing who I am. And a lot of it too was the need to achieve, just because that's all I knew. That's what I had internalized as the source of happiness, is like achievement.
So that was your measure of success.
That was my measure of success. Exactly. And it got to the point though, where I was achieving, and I still wasn't happy, and this is my, for years up until then. And so, and in order to get ahead, like I sacrificed everything for like the next gig, for the next opportunity, the next client. Like I knew that my health was breaking down. I knew that I was smoking, I was drinking heavily, and I knew that this was not good for me, but I was like blinders on, like, let me just get my business working. Let me get my business stable. And then I'll worry about me. And then I'll worry about my health and my body and everything else. So there was this blinders, because that's what got me through high school and college. In college, like I would pull an all-nighter, drinking coffee and burritos. Like that's how I did things, which was like, just focus on that end game that you want, the A, and everything else is subservient to that. And I just carried that same strategy forward 20 years when my body finally started to break down, couldn't take it anymore.
I wonder if that's a cultural thing or if that's a habit that we adopt for lack of knowledge. I remember when I was in law school, there was one of my best friends in law school. Her name was Laura, and she lives in Dominican Republic now. And Laura would every day go to the library, and she would study an hour, 2 hours every day. And then she would, do really well in law school. And I never saw Laura suffering. And in my mind, I would do what you're saying, stay up all night, crash course, procrastinate, and then study at the end as much as I could so that I could do well. And I got through it, but I always looked at her and I felt like she clearly had a better system than I did, right? And I wonder if that's just something that it's just not taught to us from a young age, that we don't have to struggle so much, that we don't have to suffer so much.
I think you're absolutely right. That's yes, 100%. And in my case, I can say that I was also doing work that I didn't enjoy. Maybe college I didn't even enjoy. Like I never studied in college the the classes that I really, really wanted to study. I studied what I thought I
did.
And what my parents would accept. I remember calling them up and saying, I found my major. I'm going to do women's studies. And they're like, the hell you are. No child of mine is going to study women's studies. That's not why we're paying all this money to send you there. So I had to get something practical, So I think that part of it too was that I learned really from watching my dad, very different from you watching your dad. I watched my dad go to work hating what he did every single day, mad at everybody and all the time because he was just unhappy. He didn't like what he did. And he did it anyways as like a gift to us, act of service to give our family what we needed, but it was never like his passion.
Yeah. And ironically, you say that, and I had such a different example. My father was pursuing his passion. He was living his dream. He was the happiest person on earth. He managed to be very present in my life, even though he was away. And yet I studied accounting. And you would say, why, Caro? Why would you study accounting? That doesn't seem to go with your personality whatsoever. I went accounting and then law. And the reason I did that was because even though my father was out pursuing his dream, I thought only the men could do that. Wow. Because the person that was home with me was my mom. And the person my parents were divorced and my father had this beautiful, flamboyant, amazing life, and it worked. Our relationship worked beautifully. But in my mind, I thought, I want to have a family. I want to have stability. So I thought women don't get to play that game. Oh, so right. I didn't realize till he died. I didn't realize until he died that I could do what he does. And it wasn't until he died that the calling became so great that I said, I will do whatever needs to get done to do this work because I cannot let the legacy die with him. And that's what pushed me too. But up until that moment, I thought very much like you. So you had this example from this father but I had a different example, and still we came to the same conclusion. Yeah. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. So you are going through all of this, and how old were you when you hit this rock bottom? Like, how were you had already graduated from college? You were already working.
This was like
yesterday.
It was like recent. It took me into the year that I had my big rock bottom, what I call my dark night of the soul. I was 39. I turned 40 that year.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you see, you look like you're 40 now, so that's really hard to understand that.
I just turned 47.
Oh my God.
Shocked as you want, because I'll take it. Yeah.
You look fantastic. So tell me about that dark night.
So long story short, and I know I keep saying that, but I'm really trying to quintessentialize this. I one day I found out that the man that I was dating you met him. He's since disappeared, so I don't feel bad saying anything. I'm not going to say his name, obviously. But he was a con artist. He was like a die-hard, absolute Dateline NBC style con artist. And I got bamboozled. And that same month, I also got finally a health diagnosis from the mystery illness that I had been suffering. And so 1, 2, domino number one, actually it went the other way. The mystery illness started. Then the breakup happened. Then I got the diagnosis, and then I stopped focusing on my business, which was total hamster wheel type of business where I had to constantly be working to make money. And I took my foot off the gas, and the business came to a stop. And there were a couple months where I made no money, and I hadn't put money away. Like I said, I was living, month to month, and my business was such a roller coaster at the time. Like 1 month of no revenues was a big deal. 2 months was an even bigger deal. And finally it just sort of I broke down. And what happened was, in that whole process, I was so heartbroken. And really not because I quote unquote loved him so much, because in hindsight, I really didn't. I think that in hindsight, the higher version of me, my best self, knew the truth. But the human version of me, the human self, was blinders on. Oh, thank you. Luli's here. Oh my God. And Luli knows this story. The human version of me ignored all these red flags all along the way for 2 years. I like allowed this to continue, and ignored it. And so when it finally all came to a head, I just cracked open, and the biggest betrayal that I was mourning was the betrayal of myself, not his, but me realizing that I had betrayed myself. Like, because there was I knew something was wrong. I knew something was off. And so that was like my heart cracked open, and what happened, what I kind of like the metaphor I use is like my heart cracked open and all the 30 years of stuff spilled out. And my one opportunity, I almost feel like that's why I had to go through it, so that my heart could open.
So what did that look like in real time? What does it look like when your heart cracks open and you're 2 months without making money and you're by yourself and you've been betrayed by this man? Like, what does that look like?
I mean, that to me, that looked like I let people see me in my darkest moment. Like, my parents got to see me. And I say got to because it was a gift. It was a gift for them. It was a gift for me. It was a gift for my friend. Like, it was a gift for everyone, I think. And for me, of course, that got to see me like be completely like open and like crying and sobbing and just like, in it. Who am I? How did I get here? How did I let this happen? Like, that's what I cracked open. And what we call, Diana knows, we just spent a whole weekend doing this kind of work. Now I know to call it alchemy. It's the transmutation of a wound into a gift, into a mission, a purpose, a vision. It's transformation. And in order to transform, I believe now, I know now, that you need to feel the feelings of discomfort and upset. And what I was doing was I was numbing my feelings, and I spent my whole 39 years of my life not allowing myself to feel my feelings, not allowing myself to feel disappointment, anger, shame. Like, if I felt those uncomfortable feelings, I would go to alcohol or a game on my iPhone, or go shopping or eat food. Like, I numbed those feelings in all these ways. And for the first time, I just let myself feel the feelings. And I ended up, my heart was like, all right, you ready to feel? Let's feel all of it. All the times you betrayed yourself, all the times that you ignored the signs, all the times that you said yes when you meant no, all of the times that you put somebody else's needs above your own, all the times that that you betrayed yourself, really.
Wow, and I have goosebumps with that. We talk a lot about pain, and a lot of us know in this group, we know pain. A lot of us have been cracked open and have felt pain and felt that awful feeling of feeling the feelings. And something that I find incredible is how many people think that in order to feel that, in order to be successful or to be happy, they can never feel bad. They can't have a bad day. They can't fall. They can't, it's always like shame is attached to sadness or to upset. I have my mom right now, she's in the hospital with really bad back pain. And the doctor came in and was like, the social worker was asking her how she was feeling. She was like, well, I'm feeling a little bit, are you feeling down? Are you feeling depressed? And she was like, I think so. Like, she was just like not feeling well. When the doctor came in, he said to her, also, I hear that you're feeling a little bit depressed. And she said, yes. And he's like, that's pain. You've got this horrible back pain. If you were smiling and feeling happy, you'd be a psychopath, right? You're not supposed to feel at the top of your game if you're suffering in crisis. And we think that we're supposed to feel happy all the time. And when we don't, there's something wrong with us. So of course you need alcohol or food or something to comfort us, because it's just too uncomfortable to be anything else. So once you felt those feelings, how long were you in that darkness? How long did it take you to start getting yourself out of that?
A few months.
And the $1 million question is, how did you start getting yourself out of that? How did you go from all that regret and that pain and that rawness to seeing the sun rise again and feeling better about yourself?
So it started with feeling it all and like going all the way in. And then the more I would let myself be seen and witnessed in my pain, the more intimacy I built with the people around me, the more love I started to feel from people. People were able to love me and I was able to receive it in a new way. In the past, I'd have been like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And, you know, but now it was like, here, I'll tell you that my heart is broken. And then this is what happened to me. So that was the first step, was telling people. And that really led to everything else, because then I was at breakfast with a person I just met. And I told him, and I started crying at the breakfast. And this was like, so the whole debacle happened. I found everything out in April. This was like mid-June. So 2.5 months in. And he said, I think we can help you with this. We have a coaching business. We coach people. Why don't you talk to my business partner, Jake, and see about coming to one of our retreats? We have a retreat. So I talked to Jake and I told him, you know, where I was. My business had dried up. You know, I was a speaker at the time. I was doing speaking, facilitating, training, workshops, consulting, coaching, like anything I could get my hands on. Right. So part of the problem was the business model, or lack thereof, which didn't give me any room to like feel my feelings and go to my dark night of the soul, because my business needed to be fed like a hungry monster, like feed me. I had to be constantly prospecting, marketing, closing deals, writing proposals, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, he said, I think we can help you both with the business model side of things and probably also with like you and how you're doing. Long story short, I started working with them. And they had a business model that was based on small events. When all of this went down, my business was a big part of it was big events, the Women's Success Summit, which some of these ladies remember.
My dad spoke at it. That's where I met you for the first time.
Exactly. So, yeah. You know, that's another example of how like messed up my business and business model and life were, like, you know, not messed up, you know, it was what it was. And, you know, I was doing this event for 250 women, 300 women, and I was, you know, monetizing it through sponsorship sales, ticket sales. Like I had this massive resistance to offering my own programs at my events. I felt like people would hate me if I made an offer, if I tried to sell something. And I had a lot of concern about what people thought of me. So these events weren't that profitable. Everybody else loved them. Everybody else was making contacts and connections. And here I was like, you know, not making all that much money from them. And so they taught me a new model of small events, retreats, higher price points, more intimacy, which of course my dark night of the soul gave me a new kind of skill for intimacy, which I'd never had before because I was always so busy trying to maintain appearances, you know? So I changed my model, and within a few months, you know, like one of the things that Jake did was I would show up for coaching calls with him with like my notebook in hand, ready to take notes, like, hey, give me another strategy, Jake. And then he'd be like, or better yet, I'd be like, Jake, I'm having this awful problem, this client, blah, 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 this is wrong and this is wrong. And I need a strategy. Can you help me? You know, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't reach you when I tried to text you 2 nights ago. And he'd be like, are you meditating? I was like, no. He's like, I'm not going to have these calls with you if you're not doing the work. And so he just put a boundary in place that if I didn't rise to that, to meet him with certain, you know, inner work that he wanted me to do, that he wasn't going to keep helping me. And he was really good at helping me. Like he was amazing. And, you know, maybe some people know him on here, but he changed my life, you know, by holding me to a higher standard of self-care. And that's where the comes in. Mm-hmm.
So the self-care, was he the one that introduced you to nourishment, to food, to meditation, to how did you get introduced to a life of wellness? He
introduced me to the nourishing, like the meditation. Jake was the one, and also SRI and NSA. So SRI is called somatorespiratory integration, which Deanna knows, and NSA is network spinal analysis. So these two things kind of go hand in hand. And we just did it this weekend. That's why she's got her arms in the air. It's pretty amazing work, and it's works in the body. So Jake would insist that I do this care, and I was just like, ugh, every time I go to my retreat with him, he had these network doctors there, and I'd have to get on a table and get a session, and I didn't feel anything for the longest time. And then, but in that process, he had us do a creative visualization one time, and I saw myself like all healthy. Now, at the time, Caroline, I was a smoker. I was a heavy drinker. And then I would probably eat fairly okay. I'd already given up like gluten, for example. But whenever I would drink heavily, then all of that would go out the window and I'd like stuff my face. So I quit smoking and drinking on my own, which is incredible, come to think of it, because I'd been smoking since I was 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a classic. So it was also something I was very ashamed of, and I was hiding from everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you been without smoking?
Since that summer. So
wow.
That was 2007 years.
That's incredible. And what about drinking? Do you drink now?
No, very rarely. Now I can drink like a half a glass of, champagne or sake or something. But I haven't had a bender in years. And I really usually don't drink even in social situations. I just drink sparkling water with lime out of a fancy glass. So
that's my husband's preferred drink too. The big glass with the ice and the sparkling water and the lemon.
For example, in my family, that's really not like when I went to New Year's last year, and my dad, they offered me a drink, and I said, no, thank you. And my dad said, she's on antibiotics. And I'm like, no, I'm not. They have to make an excuse for me.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So did you started these meditations and this body work with Jake? Did you change all of in other words, did you start eating well and give up alcohol and smoking all at the same time?
It took a while to do all of it. I would go on and off the alcohol. The problem is every time I went on, then I would start to drink more and more. And so I ended up that one, I probably quit. I quit, really lessened the drinking, but really what came in first was I started doing the coaching with Jake. I started meditating and doing SRI in the mornings. SRI is somatorespiratory integration. It's a specific kind of breath work. I was doing, Deanna, for you, I was doing stages 1 through 4 every morning. And then I started doing yoga. So I used to make fun of yoga. I used to be like, ugh, yoga, so boring. And then I fell in love with it, and I got really into yoga. And I don't know if you remember this, but in 2015, so I started working with Jake fall of 2014. And then by 2015, February, Lily remembers this, I packed up my car and left on a road trip around the country. This was also something I saw in my visualization. So I left Miami, and I think that I needed to leave Miami. I'd been there for 15 years. And it was just a place that I was just ready to move on. So I started driving for a year.
And you left by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to be able to get in a car and just go by yourself. I mean, the only person that I know that has that much courage is Dave Bricker, who sailed the Atlantic on a sailboat. But that's a whole different,
if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. But yeah, it takes, and especially a woman, by herself, getting in a car and just going. What was that like?
It was awesome. It was so cool. I mean, first of all, okay, there's so many layers to this. I started doing the new business model in October or November of that year, and it started to work. I had my first retreat. I got my first few clients into the inner circle that you mentioned earlier. So I was, for the first time in my life, in my business, I should say, I was making monthly recurring revenue. And it was like so liberating. I was like, and I was doing it all on Zoom, or not on Zoom at the time. I was doing it all on phone, that I was like, I don't have to be in Miami. I can be anywhere. So I decided to do that. But then I found myself kind of like working every single day, 9 hours a day in an Airbnb instead of at my house in Miami. So I was like, wait a second. So that was when I started to, little by little, I started molding the business to me, right? I had taken on Jake's model. And then, during the year of 2015, I started to align it to me and what I wanted and how I wanted to lead. And ultimately, I mean, that was it. It's taken 7 years to get here, and it wasn't easy in rainbows and unicorns. That first few years was really tough. Really.
I have a question for you. As you were doing these Airbnbs and you were changing your life, traveling and eating well are very difficult combination. So how did you approach health while you were on the road?
I would always pick a place with a kitchen, and I always stayed in places for like 2-3 weeks at a time. And I discovered, as I got to hit Texas, I think that's where I discovered Natural Grocers, which is my favorite place in the world, or one of my favorite places.
I don't even know what it is.
Like a baby Whole Foods, where everything is organic, everything is pasture raised, all the meats are pasture raised, and it's cheap compared to Whole Foods. So I even have a picture from that year of like me pointing at a Natural Grocers, because in my yoga outfit with my yoga, because I started to revel in health.
Oh, tell me a little bit more about that.
I started to like eat vegetables and like them, instead of it being something that I had to do. Like I think Deanna can attest, like when we do family vacation together, I mean, I bring healthy, good food. I bring, everything is organic. Everything is, is the highest quality in terms of, like we're not buying things at like the crappiest, cookies and stuff. We're buying organic everything, and pasture raised everything, because I feel like I discover that when I eat that way, I need less food, so that was a breakthrough.
I tell the girls in my community all the time, I tell them the goal is to get to a point where there's no such thing as, oh, I need a cheat day, because you just enjoy the food that you eat. That doesn't mean that you can't indulge, right? So it's not, the idea isn't that if you see a dessert or something that you're never going to be able to have it because, you just can't, you can never indulge. That's not what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is having a deep appreciation and love of eating well, and just eating healthy and nourishing your body and focusing on feeding yourself in a healthy way, as opposed to just trying to lose 5 pounds or trying to lose 10 pounds, or I'm just gonna diet for 2 weeks so that I can, get into my bathing suit or go to the, get into my wedding dress. It's more about just enjoying being a healthy person.
Well, yeah. And to add to that is like, when you're not trying to use food to cover up the gaping hole that is your heart or your life, that helps too. Yeah. I finally addressed that. And I will say one other thing that helped me was hypnosis.
Wow. Tell me about that. How did that help you?
I mean, the truth is, and this is not something I share very often, but when that whole thing went down with my ex, I was a little bit obsessed with figuring out all the lies and all the cons and who he conned and how he conned. And, I got a little bit obsessed with it, and for a couple months. And it was a hypnotist friend of mine, Todd Goodwin, who said, because I shared, this is it again. Like I opened my heart and I shared, here's what's really true. Here's what's happening. I'm obsessed. I'm looking for him all over the place. I'm trying to find all the ways I was duped. He said, come into my office. Let's do a session. And so he did like a super duper long, extra special, friend special hypnosis session on me. And I remember walking out of that office, and for the first time, I looked up at the sky, and I was just like crying gratitude for like being free of him and for having moved, like I felt liberated, and it was such a good beautiful feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I love how you were so open to so many different experiences. Like it's not that you didn't hang your hat on like one thing. It was okay, I'll try the hypnosis, I'll try the breathing, I'll try the yoga, I'll try the juices. We were talking on this call before everybody came in about how you just discovered ginger like 7 years ago or 9 years ago, and how much we love ginger. Okay, I'll try the ginger, when I'm sick. And so it's like you're open to these new experiences, and you discovered so many wonderful things as a result of it.
That you're absolutely right. Because I mean, and my mind was blown open. My heart was open and my mind got blown open, because I was also, I think we talked about this on our prep call, Caroline. I was also a self-avowed atheist.
Also, let's talk about that. You did actually, no, we did not talk about that.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
You get to enlighten me with your transformation. Tell me, because you know that my father was an agnostic,
right?
And I'm called a agno-Catholic. Was my label growing up when I was a kid. I was an agno-Catholic.
Wow.
Until my dear Dave Bricker allowed me to remove labels from myself and enjoy the mystery. Just enjoy the mystery of what it is.
I was raised Catholic, and I jokingly called myself a recovering Catholic for many years. I went to Catholic school. I grew up in a Catholic country in the Dominican Republic. I went to college and I used to take myself to church on Sundays. And then all of a sudden,
too.
Yeah. All of a sudden I just said, I don't believe this anymore. I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. There's no logic to it. I'm done. And I called myself, not even, because if you tried to tell me I was an agnostic, I was like, no, I'm an atheist. Like I don't believe in it. It's not that I don't know. I know that there's nothing. Thank you.
Yeah. Which, is a pretty bold statement.
It was. And that was my intention too. There was an element of, righteousness and superiority kind of.
And probably rebellion, right?
Yeah. Woven into that. Mm-hmm. And so even when we started the work with Jake, I was full on atheist, like didn't believe in any of it. That's why, it was so hard at the beginning for some of the work for me to do it, because I just didn't believe in any of it. And then I met Nani Leah. I met Nani Leah Diamond, and she's a network care practitioner. So she's a chiropractor who works with these energy fields in the body and the nervous system and all that. And basically had one of these experiences that I can only refer to as a mystical experience. It was a moment of knowing, like I not only knew that there's the divine. I don't want to say a God, because there's so much like baggage with that. And there's so many like personifications of this like man with a beard. And that's not what I felt. What I felt was the divine. And I felt it in me. I felt it move through me. I felt myself as a divine being. I felt my soul. I felt connected. I felt oneness. Like I had this mystical pop of an experience. And then I was like, oh, wow, there's something more beyond. And that was another moment of like tears streaming down my face and like, thank you. Just like, I remembered. Those are the words that kept coming out of my mouth. I remember. I am here now. I remember. I am here now. And that was the beginning of a whole new world that opened up for me, which that's been my number one now kind of focus and exploration is that. And from that,
what has been your focus and exploration?
Aligning to that in everything that I do.
Aligning to your source, to your divineness.
Yeah.
And how do you explore that?
Meditation, yoga, eating good food, dancing, connecting with humans, like all the things that Jake was trying to make me do,
I love it. That is amazing. Is amazing.
And I still do NSA. I still do SRI. That's what we did this weekend. And then bringing in other things like the truth is, and this may, I don't know how you feel about this, but the truth is, like, I also did some shaman medicine work. I did some journeys with psilocybin, which is mushrooms, with a shaman. I've done that. I've done medicine in Mexico. So I've tried other things too. Not a lot, just kind of scratching the surface of that, and also been just really opened up by some of those experiences as well.
Wow. Wow. I was gonna mention this before, but I didn't want to interrupt you. When I said that you were being a rebel, something that came to my mind is that, we started this call by your desire to please your parents and your desire to do everything correctly. And I think that women suffer from that. All of us do, right? So we all, I often say, like, we all try to be straight A students as adults, right? Like, we still feel like we're going to get graded in the report card, and that we're going to.
Lily B, she used to say, there are no gold stars. Stop trying to get a gold star, right, Lily? That's
okay, right.
Fine. Totally. Right.
So, and I may have gotten the report card thing from Lily B. Lily, you can tell us if I did, but it's that concept that we all feel like we need to get that A. And what I find with my clients and in my core community, and I find it over and over and over again, is that because there's so much expectation of us, we always look for something to rebel in. And for you, maybe rebellion is God, but for others, rebellion is food. Others is rebellion is alcohol. Others is rebellion is just refusing to do what you should do for yourself, even like exercise, because you just don't feel like it, because you are so tired of doing things that you don't feel like doing.
Yeah, one of the things I did this like inner child integration thing once with a practitioner, and she took me back to, like, an image of myself. And I don't even know if this was a real scenario that actually happened or an imaginary one, but I saw myself in, like, my pigtails sitting at the dining room table with my homework in front of me. And, like, I would do the homework, and then my mom would come over and say, that's not perfect. Erase it and do it again. And I erased it and I did it again, and then erased it and did it again, erased till the paper broke. And then my mom got mad. This is in a scene. And I remembered, in the inner child vision, like, I just wanted to go outside and play. And my mother in the vision wouldn't let me go. And what I realized later was that I internalized that voice, and that you can't play. You have to do the work first. You have to get it perfect before you can go out and play. And I built my entire life around that internalized mother figure voice. It's not my mom's fault at all. This is like, I'm not blaming it. Like, I'm going to be really clear. I've done the work of, like, letting all that go. There's no blame. There's no forgiveness. It's just gone, because it's our soul's journey. We chose this. I chose her. I chose this path. I chose everything so that I could be here and be able to follow my purpose,
It's funny that you should say that, because we all often talk about our children. Bye, Dave. We often talk about our children. About our parents, and about the things that happened to us, and how we, and as a result, who we are has a lot to do with who our parents are. And I always joke with people, and I was like, we are going to find fresh new ways to screw up our kids, because it doesn't matter how much you learn from your parents, you will find a way to mess up your kids in one way or another, because that's part of the human experience. And truth be told, God forbid you try to make your children's life too perfect, because if you did, they would miss out on the gift that you had of transformation, right? Totally. So we have to stop being so hard on ourselves for messing up, for being imperfect, because that is part of the transformation. That is part of the journey. We need it.
It really is. It really is. Mm-hmm.
So Betsy has a question about your meditation practice. What does it consist of?
It changes, it evolves. Like, I'm trying something new right now, but one of the biggest so early on, when Jake got me started and I was resisting, like, actual normal run of the mill meditation, he gave me Wayne Dyer's meditation.
Oh, I love that meditation. Yes.
I used to do that every morning. I sounded like a moose. right? And that was
Yes. And then I have to do it in the garage because when I do it, I can't wake up my kids or my husband. So I have to do it in the garage. But I love that meditation.
Yeah. Well, that was my first one. That was my first one that I actually did religiously. I don't know what it is about it, but it's really, it works for me. And I guess for you too. I love that one. And then, so I've tried a bunch of different things. I usually do like a normal 10 to 20 minute plain silent one. And then I've made a few meditations of my own that I use one of them is based on Joe Dispenza's work. I'm sure Betsy knows all about Joe Dispenza. I think Deanna has done that meditation. Oh yeah, you did. It's about 50 minutes long, so it's quite long. And it's all about kind of transforming the energy from which you create everything. And it's just a powerful, powerful meditation. So I do that, every so often. Every so often I'll do it for like a month straight. And that's a real, what's the word? Like catalyst for change and growth. I do a lot of work, my Nani Leah, the woman I mentioned earlier, Nani Leah Diamond, she's the one that taught me the feminine blueprint, which is the seasons that you mentioned. And so I do tons of stuff, of her. She gives us meditations and things like that. So
so wait, but
you have a morning practice, like a morning ritual, like regardless of which one you do, like, is it like every day in the morning?
Every day, every single day. Yeah. And I walk Neo, which is my new puppy. I've had him for like 10 months now. So we go on a walk every day. That's about 45 minutes or so. And that's a part of my ritual in the morning. And then I also do some creative writing in the morning, like not every day, that part, the morning pages practice from the Artist's Way.
That's a great practice.
Yeah. So, and that's how I wrote my poem, which is something that now I'm turning into a book. I'm turning it into a children's book for adults.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So with the seasons, I wanted to talk about the seasons, and you said the feminine blueprint, and I want to know a little bit more about what that means.
The feminine blueprint is basically the feminine operating system, and it's built on the seasons, and it aligns with the seasons. This is Nani Leah. She helped me. She came in to one of our masterminds with Jake. She was in Jake's mastermind. We met. She blew my mind with an entrainment session where I had that touching the divine moment. And then I started working with her. I brought her into my client family vacation back in 2016. And then she joined my inner circle, and I helped her build her model just like mine. And then I joined it. And so I helped her make it. And then I said, hey, I'm in, I'll join it. So then I've been working with her ever since. It's been about 4 years now, 5 years, I guess. Or 2017 is when she launched it. So 4 years. And so she figured out, she's brilliant. You can listen to her on my podcast if you want. I interviewed her back in 2017 or 2018 for my podcast. You can search Nani Leah Diamond, Michelle Villalobos, and you'll find it. It's a really good interview. But she basically, in a dream, this came to her, this idea of the feminine blueprint, which is the 4 seasons. If we think, and I'm going to go backwards so that you guys can see it this way, right? Are you seeing it clockwise?
Yeah.
Okay. So receptivity is the season of winter, is the season of quiet, stillness. The idea is that in nature, winter is the season of the germinating of the seed, right? So just like in nature with humans, it's the listening deeply and receiving the new wisdom, or receiving the seed of a new idea or a new vision or a new dream, cultivating the dream. So in our culture, we don't tend to take a lot of time to slow down and just be and just listen deeply. So winter is the season for doing that. And then we move into the spring, and the season of spring is embodiment. And that's the season in nature where stuff starts to pop out of the ground, right? The green starts to pop through the soil. The trees start to grow new leaves. It's the season of becoming. And it's the season of initiations where you get to live the new vision. You get to start to be. So let's say if in the season of winter, you had this new idea or this new dream that you want to create. Well, the season of spring is when you start to do the work of putting it into place, reorganizing, getting rid of things that don't serve you so that you can create the new. And it's usually when we get faced with the biggest initiations, which are sort of the opportunities, as one of my clients says, the opportunities to strengthen intention. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm claiming in this year. All right, then show me that you really mean it, right? Like let's see. And that's usually the season where we renegotiate agreements. We have to become the person that can create this new thing. And then we move into the season of the summer, which is the season of expression, which is the full expression of whatever it is, like telling the world about it, launching the thing, creating the thing, like speaking it, and a lot of activities. The summer is the season with the longest days, right? There's the most doing. It's the full bloom of the summer, the most activity, the longest days, the most yang or masculine of the 4 seasons, right? There's the most energy that's, in the world. And then as we move from expression, we start to move up to the season of attraction, which is harvest. It's the autumn. The season of autumn is where we harvest the fruits of the whole cycle, and we gather the fruits, and we get to bless the fruits and be grateful. And in that season is where we get to, it's the season of attraction. We get to witness what we've created through that cycle. And so in the season of attraction, we go back to the season of receptivity, where we look at the gifts, bless them, and say, and here's, I'm listening deeply for the new vision for what I'm going to do now this time around the cycle. And that's how we get to, improve and become closer to our highest self. Each season we have an opportunity to learn, to grow, to be initiated, to express something new, to clarify our signal. And every beautiful thing that I think I've created in my life in the last 4 years is somehow connected to this work.
So how do you, in fall and winter, with a thriving business, how do you slow down? How do you sit still and receive?
No, you sign up, like it helps that I have Nanilea in my life, like coaching. That's number one. The reminder,
so
right?
Have a good coach. Have a good coach is the answer.
A mentor and or people who can help hold you accountable, right? And then one thing that I do is I started doing this a few years ago due to the work with Nanilea. Like I set aside a couple weeks just to be, no work, just to deeply listen to myself. And one time I did it in California for a few days, not a whole 2 weeks, but this was about 4 or 5 days with a 2,000-year-old tree in California. I stayed at an Airbnb on this property that had a tree that's, the way I saw it, was around when Christ was alive, right? It was that old. And I just, meditated and hung out and wrote in my journal and listened to music, classical music, and for these few days. And that was one really beautiful winter where I definitely got the message that I was meant to write a book, like a real book. Not, I don't mean that other books aren't real, like a story, not a business book, but a book, like a story, a novel. And so that's kind of my big, thank you, Deanna. That's my beautiful. Really my big vision now is to create. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So we've got 6 minutes left. If anyone has a question for this amazing superstar, please make sure that you ask it now before you run out of time. But in the meantime, tell me about Michelle today. Like who are you today? I know that you are, when people refer to you, they always say like, oh, Michelle, she's a hippie now. And she's, now people refer to you as hippie. And like, Francis refers to you and me as like, oh, they drank the Kool-Aid and, all that fun stuff. So where are you at now? And like, now that you've overcome that relationship, now that you don't have children, right? And you're not married either.
No.
So where are you? I love that you are just like this feminine, like just who you are. Like I'm so attracted to your energy and to who you are. So I want to know about the Michelle of today.
Well, okay, a couple of things that you touched on. The first I'll say is like, I see myself as a leader, as a lover of humans, lover of superstars. Like my mission in life is to activate people to bring their gifts to the world, to shine their light as bright as they can. I mean, that's really what everything I do comes back to. And so the projects that I'm working on that align with that right now, I've got 3. One of them is this poem that I received in a download, and now I'm producing into a picture book, like a children's book for adults. It's called But I Want to Fly. And I just read it to the inner circle over the weekend for the first time. And then my other project is this book called No Cartwheels in the House. And that's my gift. That's what I believe is going to be my legacy on this planet, is that book or those books, and maybe many more, who knows. And then on the other side, to something you mentioned about love and about family and all that, like for the longest time, after what I recognized in short from that relationship is part of why I put up with what I put up with for as long as I did, was because I was desperate to be in a relationship, because I believed that if nobody would marry me, that would mean that I wasn't good enough. And I was really feeling like I was hitting my upper limit of possibility, because I wanted to have children at the time. And I thought, if this isn't it, then I'm done. And so I hung on to that relationship a lot longer than I probably would have if I hadn't been so attached to that belief, to that story. So when I cleared that story out and I got rid of like the need to have a relationship, to have children, I kind of swung the pendulum maybe a little too far in the other direction, and had realized just recently in the last, I think, month and a half, I was on a personal development event in Croatia. And what I realized in that event was that I had confused being unattached to being like I don't need it. I don't want it. And the fact is, I can be unattached and not be desperate and not betray myself for a relationship. But that doesn't mean that I don't desire one, or that I don't deserve love either. So that was a big breakthrough for me, that I desire and deserve love and partnership. And that doesn't also, I don't need to be attached to desire and deserve it.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. I love what you embody, because you embody this like powerful, feminine, authentic superstar, because that's what you are, and yet vulnerable, honest, and what you just said about wanting and deserving of love. There's so many women that I know that are going to listen to this call and that are going to identify with that. Like, I want it, I desire it, I deserve it, and yet it doesn't define me. It doesn't, I'm attached to that. And I can have an incredibly fulfilling, loving, amazing life. Whether you get
That's
it.
right. And that's what I mean. Like, I know everything. I have this line that I use a lot, and it's everything is already okay. Like somebody dies and people are like, it's going to be okay. Or something happens, you get cancer, it's going to be okay. I'm going to pray for you. And I used to live like that. Well, it will be okay. This kind of, and what I now believe, and what I keep reminding myself, is it's already okay. It's already okay. Like, when you live in a state of faith and trust, you know that in this moment, no matter what is happening, it really, truly at the biggest level is already okay. And that's how I feel about the love thing. Like, it's already okay, whether I have it or don't have it. I know it's already okay.
It is.
And I desire it. And because I desire it, I believe I will get to experience it.
Well, because what Michelle wants, Michelle gets. You just hadn't verbalized yet that you wanted it. So the universe wasn't responding.
I had admitted it to myself. I was in an active state of like, no, if I desire it, then I'm attached to it. There was a like a collapsing of those two things, which I now know are separate.
I have an affirmation, not an affirmation, a quote that I said this to my girlfriend, Betsy, when we were in the Summit of Greatness. We did the Summit of Greatness a few years ago. And I was sitting with her, and I don't know if you remember, Betsy, but we were sitting at a coffee shop, I think it was, and we were talking about me not having like so much ambition. What I mean by that is like, I'm not a more kind of person. Like, I'm not like climbing to the top of that. Like, I want to like, have all the money in the world or build the biggest empire or do all this other stuff. I'm actually very content in my life the way that I am, which causes me to be a bit of a turtle. I move very slowly in everything that I do. So like, it took me 2 years to, 2.5 years to write my book. And, people would be like, when are you going to get it done? or what are you doing lately? And my response would always be like, oh, I'm just writing my book. Wow, you've been working on that forever, but I was like, I'm a turtle, I'm a turtle. And I told Betsy on that trip, I said, I feel like I want more, but I don't, I feel like I want more, but I don't feel like I have less.
Right.
And that's where I'm at. I could want more theoretically. I could want more like, just desire like bigger things. But I honestly, in my life, do not feel like I have anything less than what is amazing, than what I should have.
Yeah, exactly. You're creating from abundance instead of from scarcity. That's literally the key to the feminine blueprint. It's blessing the gifts and receiving the new vision of, okay, in this cycle, this is what I'm going to create next, while honoring whatever is right now.
Wow. Well, I'm super inspired. I don't know about everybody else on this call, but I am super inspired by this call, Michelle. Thank you.
Wait, but don't leave yet. Wait. Let me ask you. I'll ask you more things tomorrow. But for someone who is like you, like go, do, like go get it to them, like I think something and it's already done before I'm done thinking it, and I invest in it and I go all in, and I like, and then of course voy a las millas, right? Like I'm always like so then eventually I get super overwhelmed and super overwhelmed and burnt out and mad, because all this energy and all this that I invested on doing and giving, and I gave my 100% or 300%, and I invested all this, and it doesn't turn out the way I hoped it would, oftentimes because I went so fast that I didn't do the pre-steps kind of thing that you're supposed to do before, right? And part of it because we have no control over the outcome. Like this whole idea of, I've been in a place of surrender for a couple months, and it's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever gone through, even though I've gone through a lot of very uncomfortable things. But this is like, I'm like, like waiting. And I've come, like, I feel like right now, if you ask me today or as of a week ago, I have embraced it and accepted it, and it's already okay, and I'm like happy. But then the fear of, oh my gosh, am I getting too comfortable? Am I settling? Like creeps in, right? Like, so it's hard. And I meditate daily. It's like sacred. I love it. It's transformed my life. Like spirituality is my number one goal, vision board, like it's maintaining that ritual to me is like number one in my life. But yeah, but I still struggle with okay, I'm still, and I was telling my girls, like, I was telling Caro, like, I want to be proactively still, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I want to be still, but I don't want to be too still that I get comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what the question is.
There's just so much in your share, and I feel you, sister. Like I recognize myself in you so much, and it feels like perhaps there's an emptying that can happen to help you like really find that inner stillness. And I believe that from that place you can create all the things. It's just, it's a different, what I've recognized in myself, what Deanna experienced this weekend, is that there are so many possibly wounds that have not actually had a chance to be loved. And from that place, you know, the neutrality, the emptiness, the what I call dancing in the mystery, from that place of emptying, then the new thing, a new truth always shows up, a new wisdom. And when we're in that noisy space, that wisdom can't drop in. And so I just, yeah, I don't know for sure. And we'll talk tomorrow. I know we're on the schedule, but I'm guessing, like, just intuitively speaking, that there's an opportunity for an alchemy or a transformation or an emptying of what has been in the past to make room for what is true in this moment that may not have even been true 2 weeks ago. I hope that helps.
It will sink in at some point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here, for supporting Michelle and I. Thank you, Michelle, for being a part of the call. I am so grateful to you for being here. And I'm so glad that we reconnected, because, you know, I feel like you, just before we hang up, I'm going to say one last thing about Michelle. When my father passed away, we were in National Speakers Association. We were celebrating, which I think was in, I can't remember where it was that year. Maybe San Diego. No, anyway, that's not relevant. We were celebrating his life, and it was in one of those conference rooms where, you know, we have breakout sessions at, you know, you have the big speakers in the main thing, and then you have these conference rooms, and a bunch of people came to celebrate my dad's life. And I spoke at that celebration. And I remember standing in the middle of the room, and Michelle was literally sitting right in front of me. And it wasn't that she was doing anything. She was just sitting there, just supporting me, you know, for my dad. And I knew that she had loved my dad. And I knew that she had a relationship with my dad, but she really didn't have a relationship with me. So at that point, you know, she was paying her respects to him, but I felt very much like she was there, being very supportive of me in that moment. And we didn't have a close relationship, and that never turned into anything except me having that memory. But now it comes full circle, and here we are reconnected again. So for me, that's very, very meaningful. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Your dad was very special to me. I know you hear that all the time. I'm really glad to have this new connection with you too. And you reminded him, such a joy for life and such an ability to connect with people and feel people. I feel so seen and known in your presence. And I know other people do too. It's a beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good night. Bye, everyone.
Night, everybody. Thank you.